Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I am your host, Jonathan Chiliak, joined by my co-host, Tim Diacono, and here are your headlines for today. Robert Abela, confident Malta will pass Moneyval test with flying colours. 23-year-old MARSA shopkeeper tragically killed in fire. Caution. Public health and food risk flagged at Salina as ducks infected with bird flu and salmonella are found. Tourism Minister invites Boris Johnson to a run in Malta after obesity comment. Okay, so Tim, we've got quite a mix of headlines here today.
Absolutely. So, hi John, hello everyone. Let's start with the first item of the day. Robert Abela last night, the Prime Minister of Malta, gave quite a confident declaration that Malta is going to pass the upcoming Moneyval test, and not only pass it, but pass it with flying colours. So there's been a lot of concern about this Moneyval test. Obviously, for those who don't know, we failed the first test last year, and there's another second test, a follow-up test coming up in October. And some financial experts have said that we're already going to, that there's no point, we're going to fail this test, absolutely, to be defeatist in my opinion, and we're just not looking for the future. However, the Prime Minister said, we're confident that we're going to pass this test just as we passed the COVID test, and there was another test, I forgot which one it was, but the COVID test for sure. And this is first real declaration about this Moneyval test. Do you think we're going to pass it?
I mean, I hope we pass it, obviously. This is a very important assessment of Malta's economic and financial services. And if we fail the test, Malta could be grey-listed. I mean, it could also be blacklisted, but I think the fear is that we'll be grey-listed. And we'll be joining other countries such as Panama, the Bahamas, as well as Iceland. So it's a bit of a mix of countries there. But what does it mean if we're grey-listed? It could really severely be catastrophic for certain industries in Malta, specifically the financial services industry, as well as the iGaming industry. It could really undo years of measures and incentives that have been rolled out by the government to boost these sectors and these industries. Two industries that are very important to the Maltese economy. So let's see how this develops. The assessment will be coming, and if we are grey-listed, it's not going to be very good for Malta. Moving on to a bit of another...
But obviously there just to note, there has been a change. We're having quite a few changes since the first Moneyval test, including a new police commissioner, including a new head of the economic crimes unit, including more resources to the economic crimes unit and the FIU. So perhaps Moneyval will be convinced. However, the big challenge, of course, remains the lack of actual prosecutions for money laundering.
So, I mean, do you think enough has been done?
I think the police are going to need to prosecute a few people, and then maybe yes. Okay,
moving on to a bit of a different story. Unfortunately, yesterday, a 23-year-old man lost his life in a tragic fire. It's unknown what led to the fire, but Maged Saad Malak Eshak, who lived in Hamroun, he also ran the Middle East market shop, lost his life, and it seems like this guy was a bit of a popular guy in Hamroun. A lot of people have commented about how tragic his loss was. Also, some popular influencers like Adrian Zamit have spoken about how close they were to this guy and how he was the type of guy who would give you the shirt off his back. And in fact, he had a really unfortunate, he had a plan coming up soon, right? A really important moment in his life coming up.
Yeah, he was going to get married actually, and he was telling his customers how excited he was. He was going to go to Egypt to get married to his love, to his girlfriend, and then he was telling people like, the next time you see me, I'll be a married man.
Wow.
And unfortunately, tragedy hit. We don't yet know exactly what caused the fire, right? But
yeah, no, we don't know what yet. We've heard like some rumors that it could have been a potential gas leak. So either way, guys, take care at home. Obviously, he was living in the market where the fire occurred. If you have gas there, make sure that it's closed. I mean, this is a tragedy that could have been avoided for sure. Moving on to another story that actually does involve markets and restaurants as well.
Yes, so Malta confirmed another another day with no new active COVID-19 cases, and that means that the number of active cases has now gone down to 15, which is the lowest it's been in quite a few months. Now, obviously, there were a lot of fears being raised. I think this is where your market comment comes in that, you know, that there were fears that after we opened our restaurants and bars and establishments and, you know, loosened the rules on social distancing, that we're going to see a huge wave, a huge spike in infections, and there's going to be, you know, an overload of our hospitals. Thankfully, this hasn't happened. The active COVID-19 cases are down to 15. Of course, the great challenge has just started, which is that Malta has opened its airport to a few countries currently, to the whole world in 12 days' time.
Wow.
However, I think the way the health authorities and the country in general, I think we've handled this extremely well. There were a lot of fears that were raised. I mean, perhaps, you know, justifiably so, seeing as the situation was so unpredictable. But you know, I think the results speak for themselves. 15 cases is extremely good. Hospitalizations are extremely low, and yes, this is overall great news.
Now, I mean, as good as that is, health authorities are still urging caution. And while it's important to keep in mind that officially Malta is not in a public health emergency anymore, just of a few days ago. I mean, if you go to supermarkets, people are still urging you to wear masks. Actually, it seems like it's a little bit touch and go. I've been to some supermarkets and restaurants where they're still telling you to put a mask on, sanitize when you enter. Then you go to some other places and no one's wearing masks. The staff isn't even wearing masks. That's when it comes to commercial establishments. When it comes to churches, the masks are still on. Then when it comes to other mass events, such as clubs or other activities like this, it seems like not many people are wearing masks. So it does seem like we've got a big variation between industries and approaches to sanitation and hygiene. Either way, guys, very, very important to keep in mind. Health authorities are saying we need to stay cautious. So don't get all willy-nilly out there and just throw your mask away. Keep it in your pocket, keep it on your face if you're outside and you're near people, and keep practicing social distancing. Moving on to the next story, and this is really a strange story. I mean, from one virus to another virus, right?
Absolutely.
So hundreds of ducks were found to have been infected with bird flu and salmonella in Salina. This is insane. So people had flagged that some ducks were dying in Salina, obviously near the sea, next to the water over there. And the Veterinary and Plant Regulatory Division have done some tests, and they found that they're infected with salmonella and bird flu. These are feral domesticated ducks. So now there's a risk that they might be infecting the nearby wildlife, nearby fauna and flora. This is something I don't think anyone really expected right now, Tim, right?
Yeah, from one, we might be out of the woods with regard to COVID, but, welcome bird flu. Anyway, no, it is a serious concern. The authorities have said that there were actually chickens in the vicinity, which means that these diseases could somehow end up in food, in food products. Again, not to alarm anyone, but this is what they said last night.
No.
And there's going to be an investigation, underway. But yes, that's the reality. Bird flu has affected these ducks, and there were chickens in the vicinity that were for human consumption. So
it's a bit worrying because obviously over the last few months, everyone's learned so much more about viruses and how they spread. And obviously, when it comes to animals, it can be extremely worrying. I mean, at first, people thought that the illness might be something to do with the water or maybe the heat of the water or something, but no, when they tested the ducks out, they found that they were infected. So let's definitely keep monitoring that. Authorities are on it and they're watching. But yeah, this infected hundreds of ducks. This isn't some small, tiny batch. Hundreds of ducks. And as we know, in Salina, there's quite a bit of wildlife, a lot of bird life there. So let's keep monitoring that. Hopefully we can contain it. And moving on to the final story of today.
Yes, so our tourism minister, Giulia Farrugia Portelli, was interviewed on the BBC, ahead of Malta's, reopening of the airports to all tourists, obviously in this case referring to British tourists. And she was obviously asked about Boris Johnson's quip at Maltese people, where he basically said that the British people are the fattest in Europe, barring the Maltese. And there was quite a bit of, I don't say outrage, but it sparked quite a discussion in Malta. In fact, there was a burger named the Boris Burger.
There's the Fat Boris Burger.
The Fat
Boris Burger. I think Hungry Cow rolled it out. I mean, they jumped right on it. It comes with like triple bacon, bunch of eggs, lots of patties.
Not really helping our cause. But anyway, so Giulia Foggia-Portelli challenged, or rather invited Boris Johnson over to the UK for a jog on a Maltese beach.
I mean, Giulia Foggia-Portelli, obviously, trying to take a jovial approach to this potentially controversial story. She actually said that she wished that neither country were on the list. Neither the UK nor Malta were topping the obesity list. I mean, clearly, if she wished that, what we need to do is probably take a proactive stance and really start seeing if obesity is a serious problem in Malta, which it seems like it is, and how we're going to tackle it seriously. But, okay, do you think Boris Johnson is going to accept? Do you think the British Prime Minister is going to accept her invitation?
I don't know. There's a whole controversy in the UK because Boris Johnson's father travelled to Greece, so that's hugely controversial right now. They have our own ministers inviting the Prime Minister over, so I think he'll hold off on the challenge for now. Hopefully he'll come in the future, but I think he'll hold off for now. However, Giulia Foggia-Portelli also spoke, she was also asked about the risk posed to Malta by allowing British tourists in, given that the rate of infection in the UK is still relatively high. And she kind of downplayed it, she was saying Malta's handled it well, we're the safest country in the Mediterranean, we have a great history with the United Kingdom, and we have protocols and mechanisms in place. Are you concerned that there's going to be a spike in infections?
From the interview, what really struck me was, the British interviewer said, the UK's got one of the worst rates of infection in Europe. Malta has one of the best rates of infection in Europe, one of the lowest. Are you concerned about, now letting a bunch of British people into your very clean and safe country? And as you said yourself, her response was to say we have mechanisms and protocols in place. Not only that, Malta and the UK have had a great relationship since the 50s. And apparently some recent studies from flight operators were saying that the numbers are looking good. So she's very, very keen to get tourists over, get the tourism economy back on its feet. That seems to be her prerogative right now. And that's totally understandable. At the end of the day, she is tourism minister. So we'll have to see. Obviously yesterday the airports opened. We got our first batch of, 2 days ago, the airport opened. And we got our first batch of tourists for a batch of tourists. So it seems like we're in it. It's happening. So far, nothing catastrophic's happened. Yeah. So hopefully it's all going to end well, and maybe we can all go for a nice jog on the beach together and tackle this obesity thing together.
Or perhaps a holiday as well.
Or a holiday. I think that brings us to the end of today's episode of Lovin Daily. From myself and my co-host Tim, have a day full of lovin'.